Top 1. The Codex Gigas, the Devil's Bible. In 1648, as Swedish forces swept through the Kingdom of Bohemia during the 30 Years' War, they seized a number of valuable artifacts from the Benedictine monastery of Brumov. Among them was an enormous manuscript weighing over 165 lbs, bound in leather and reinforced with wooden iron. It took 2 men to lift it. What they carried out of that monastery would later become known as the most cursed book ever written, the Codex Gigas, or the Devil's Bible. Its ominous name stemmed not just from its contents, but from what was illustrated inside. On a single unbroken page, framed with intricate red borders, was a full-body portrait of Satan, horned, crouching, staring directly at the reader, with a face frozen in unnatural calm. For centuries, that image haunted the dreams of those who had gazed too long at its eyes. According to monastery records, the Codex was created in the early 13th century by a monk named Herman the Recluse, who lived under strict penance. Facing death for breaking monastic vows, Herman begged for a chance to atone by creating the largest book ever written to glorify God. He was granted a single night. When morning came, the book was inexplicably complete. 624 pages, all written in the same flawless script, with no corrections or hesitation marks. Scholars and calligraphers have since confirmed that producing it by hand would have taken at least 20 years. Yet, every page is consistent, every line perfectly spaced, every letter identical. Either it was done in a superhuman feat of endurance, or, according to legend, Herman made a pact with the devil. The book contains the complete Vulgate Bible, texts on exorcism, medicine, astronomy, and a collection of magical formulas. But more disturbing are the pages in between. These include apocalyptic prophecies, spells for summoning spirits, and rituals for invoking protection using obscure symbols not found in any known religious tradition. One section describes the binding of shadowed voices, a rite meant to silence internal thoughts through bloodletting. Another segment outlines a method to call upon a nameless intermediary who trades clarity for loyalty. None of these rituals are referenced in any known occult manuscript. Some pages, particularly those between the biblical books and the demonological texts, appear to have been scorched, as if someone attempted to destroy specific knowledge but stopped short. The ink used throughout the manuscript has been analyzed and found to contain traces of arsenic, mercury, and bone ash. After its seizure, the book was stored in the Royal Library of Stockholm, where it remains today. But not all of it is publicly available. Several pages are now missing. The official explanation is damage during relocation. Yet, there are persistent rumors that the lost sections contain diagrams of infernal geometry and invocations that required vocal harmonics to activate. According to a 1973 restricted report from the Swedish National Heritage Board, a librarian assigned to the manuscript was hospitalized after attempting to read the entire book in one night. He claimed to hear whispers between the words and began speaking in a language no one could identify. The case was quietly suppressed. To this day, the Codex Gigas is encased in a climate-controlled glass vault. Access is permitted only under strict supervision, and photographs of certain pages are censored in published reproductions. The Vatican has repeatedly requested to examine the manuscript firsthand, but Sweden has denied all such inquiries without comment. If the legends are true, the devil's portrait in the Codex Gigas was not simply an illustration. It was an anchor, a signature, a mark of authorship. And if that's the case, one has to ask, how many other books has he written? Satan Top 2. The Red Dragon Grimoire. The Red Dragon Grimoire. In 1521, deep within the shadowed catacombs beneath the Bastille, a copy of a manuscript was discovered hidden behind a false wall, wrapped in cloth, soaked with myrrh, and sealed with red wax. The guards who found it delivered it to an inquisitor, only for the man to vanish days later. His quarters were found disturbed, the book missing. That text would reappear across centuries in whispers and black markets, always under the same name, Le Dragon Rouge, the Red Dragon. It was not just a grimoire, but a pact, a step-by-step guide for making a contract with infernal forces in exchange for earthly power. Le Dragon Rouge claims to be authored by Alibek the Egyptian, allegedly drawing upon forbidden knowledge preserved from the libraries of ancient Memphis. The book opens with an invocation addressed directly to Lucifer, asking for dominion over the spirits that command material wealth. It details a ritual designed to forge a blood covenant, promising health, power, and abundance in return for lifelong loyalty. The process is not symbolic. The ritual instructs the reader to carve sigils into their own skin, with a blade dipped in goat's blood, and myrrh while reciting a Latin passage, aligning the practitioner's soul with a spirit of dominion. The text identifies 4 primary infernal agents: Lucifer, Beelzebub, Astaroth, and Orient. Each is associated with an elemental domain: air, fire, water, and earth. Through complex diagrams, the book outlines how to summon them individually or collectively, by drawing circles of command infused with specific minerals such as sulfur, magnetite, and bone dust. Each summoning requires a sacrifice aligned with the target domain. For instance, a cockerel drowned at midnight for Beelzebub, or crushed sage burned during an equinox for Astaroth. The rituals are not left to the imagination. They are recorded with clinical precision, with annotations suggesting the author had first-hand experience. Perhaps most disturbing is the section titled The Pact. The text instructs the practitioner to write in their own blood a contract addressed to Lucifer, promising loyalty and obedience in exchange for what is desired. This contract must then be burned in the flames of a black candle made from animal fat and ash from a desecrated altar. The final instruction is to wait in darkness, during which a sign will be given, though the book does not say what form the sign will take. In recorded history, several individuals known to have owned copies of Le Dragon Rouge died under mysterious circumstances, often after reported episodes of hallucinations, violent outbursts, or unexplained fires destroying their libraries. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the Catholic Church actively sought out copies of the Red Dragon across Europe, ordering their destruction. But the book continued to resurface, particularly in underground occult circles in France and Italy. Some versions were handwritten, others printed crudely. No two were identical. In 1895, a copy was confiscated during a police raid in Paris, in the home of a former theology professor turned reclusive mystic. The professor's journals indicated he had attempted the ritual, but stopped short after receiving a warning that arrived in the form of a human voice echoing from beneath the floorboards. Today, modern occultists continue to reference Le Dragon Rouge, often merging it with elements of other grimoires, but original editions are almost impossible to find. One is rumored to be held in a private collection in New Orleans, another in a secured vault beneath the Vatican's secret archives. Neither has been verified. What makes Le Dragon Rouge so enduring is not just its promises of wealth or power, but its tone. Unlike other texts that caution or veil their instructions, this book speaks directly, plainly, and confidently, like a teacher explaining a tool. And that may be the most unsettling part, because tools can build or destroy. Top 3. The Grand Grimoire. The Grand Grimoire. In 1750, a bound manuscript surfaced in the shadowy alleys of Genoa, Italy. It bore no author's name, only a title pressed into worn leather: Le Véritable Dragon Rouge. But unlike other occult texts of the era, this one was different. It did not claim to merely describe spirits or symbolic rituals. It declared with surgical certainty that it could summon Lucifer himself and force him to obey. Known widely as the Grand Grimoire, this book quickly gained a reputation among both occultists and inquisitors as the most dangerous grimoire ever written. Legends claim it was penned in the 16th century by a man named Honorius of Thebes, or possibly even King Solomon himself under a pseudonym. But others believe it was dictated by a being calling itself Lucifuge Rofocal, a demonic entity said to command hell's treasury. This creature is named specifically in the opening pages, where the reader is instructed to prepare a negotiation of souls under strict planetary alignments. The Grand Grimoire's structure is methodical and chilling. It is divided into 2 books. The first outlines the exact conditions and materials required for the summoning, timing based on lunar phases, the preparation of a blade forged with meteorite iron, and the creation of a protective triangle drawn with ashes from an exhumed priest's robe. The second book provides incantations and contracts, all written in a strange hybrid of Latin, Hebrew, and ciphered French. Unlike many other magical texts, these rituals are not metaphorical. They are framed as practical instructions, step by step, precise and devoid of mysticism, as if the author expected results. What sets the Grand Grimoire apart is its offer, not just knowledge or influence, but control. The summoner is instructed not to plead with Lucifuge, but to command him using the authority granted by the Covenant of Solomon. This covenant, allegedly hidden in a lost chapter of the Old Testament, is said to give human beings dominion over spirits through divine hierarchy. The ritual involves a pact signed in blood, but also a challenge. The practitioner must endure 13 consecutive nights of invocation, each more intense than the last, without succumbing to hallucinations or fear. Fail, and the text warns, he shall be reclaimed. Over the centuries, the Grand Grimoire was banned by the Catholic Church and listed in the Index Librorum Prohibitorum. Copies were hunted and burned, yet it endured, smuggled through secret societies, whispered among Rosicrucians, and studied by shadow sects within Freemasonry. One copy is believed to have been stolen from the Vatican Library during the Napoleonic Wars. Another resurfaced in Haiti during the early 1800s, where it merged with local voodoo practices, giving birth to hybrid rituals still performed in secrecy. In 1932, a French occultist named Jean-Michel Ardo claimed to have completed the full invocation. Days later, he was found dead in his apartment in Lyon, surrounded by ritual markings. Authorities reported no signs of struggle, but his eyes had turned completely black. His journals, discovered hidden beneath floorboards, contain pages of the Grand Grimoire translated into a phonetic script meant to be spoken aloud, not read. To this day, no modern academic has been granted access to a verified complete edition of the Grand Grimoire. Some claim it's held in the Vatican's secret archives. Others believe it was buried with a 19th-century cardinal who reportedly died mid-exorcism. What's most unsettling is not that the book claims to summon Lucifer. It's that its tone is clinical, logical, and cold, as if what it offers is not a gamble with one's soul, but a transaction already accounted for. Top 4. The Book of Spirits. The Book of Spirits. In 1407, a monk transcribing forbidden manuscripts at the Mont Saint-Michel Abbey in Normandy vanished from his quarters without a trace. The only thing left behind was a soot-blackened codex bearing a title few dared to speak aloud: Liber Spirituum, or the Book of Spirits. Bound in coarse animal hide and written in a medieval Occitan dialect, the text was unlike any other in the Abbey's collection. Its pages were filled not with prayers or theology, but with the names, 46 in total, of entities the Church refused to acknowledge, each accompanied by the method to summon them through blood. This codex is not a work of theory. It is a manual, precise in its layout, and disturbing in its clarity. Each spirit listed within is identified not only by name, but by an emblem, a planetary alignment, and a set of physical symptoms the summoner may experience in its presence: nausea, bleeding from the eyes, and temporary aphasia. The spirits are not categorized as demons, angels, or elementals. Instead, they are described as les absents, or those who are missing. What they are missing from, the book never says. Summoning one of these entities requires a bloodline-specific component. The text instructs that the practitioner must identify their ancestral star under the fixed zodiac, then draw blood on the corresponding lunar hour. That blood is mixed with crushed nightshade and drawn into a spiral across the ritual circle. Only then can the glyph of the desired spirit be activated. The spirits are not invoked with chants, but with tones, specific pitches sung or played, each matching a resonance said to pierce the boundary of flesh and thought. If the tone is misaligned, the text warns, the entity may remain half-opened and leak into physical space without form. The book's origins are murky. Some scholars believe it was compiled from older Iberian texts, confiscated during the Albigensian Crusade. Others trace its sigil system to proto-Kabbalistic designs, suggesting a fusion of Hebrew mysticism and early Gnostic rites. But what is most chilling is the consistency. Handwritten versions discovered in France, Spain, and parts of southern Italy all preserve the same 46 spirits, the same glyphs, and the same instructions, despite having no known contact across regions. Church authorities declared the Liber Spirituum heretical upon discovery. Several monks who had handled the book reported shadow apparitions that mimicked human movement, but cast no light. One chronicler noted that the ambient temperature near the book dropped to 43 degrees, even in summer. In 1482, a tribunal of Dominican inquisitors ordered every known copy burned. But like fireproof myth, the text reappeared. In 1701, a version was found inside a hollow wall during renovations of the Château de Montségur, site of the last Cathar stronghold. The manuscript had been rewritten on vellum in code with red ink that tested positive for human iron levels. Today, few institutions admit to possessing the Liber Spirituum. An uncatalogued version is rumored to be kept in a climate-controlled room at the Bibliothèque Nationale de France. The last person known to request access to it, a doctoral student researching medieval ritual music, died from sudden cardiac arrest outside the library's gates. He was 27, with no prior health conditions. His notes were never recovered. Unlike other grimoires, this book makes no promises, no rewards, and no protection. It simply offers a directory. 46 names that were never meant to be spoken, 46 glyphs that react to blood, and 46 paths that lead away from known reality. If these entities are truly missing, then one has to wonder, who was trying to bring them back? Top 5. The Book of Abramelin. The Book of Abramelin. In 1897, Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers, co-founder of the secretive Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, published an English translation of a long-forgotten manuscript he claimed to have discovered in a library in Paris. The original document, written in archaic German and dated to the 14th century, bore the cryptic title, The Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. But those who have studied its contents agree. This was not simply a book of rituals. It was a system, a perilous journey meant to alter the practitioner's perception of reality and make direct contact with spiritual entities that dwell far beyond comprehension. The book follows the story of Abraham of Worms, a German Jew who claimed to have traveled to Egypt in search of divine wisdom. There he met Abramelin, a reclusive magician who passed down a singular teaching, that every human being possesses a holy guardian angel, a supernatural guide that can only be reached through months of physical and spiritual purification. The goal was not to summon demons, but to command them after first aligning with the divine counterpart assigned to one's soul. Unlike other grimoires filled with quick rituals and fiery threats, the Book of Abramelin demands something different: time, solitude, and sacrifice. The central operation requires 6 lunar months of daily prayer, ritual cleansing, strict dietary restrictions, and complete seclusion. During this time, the practitioner is to construct a sacred oratory free from distraction or contamination and perform invocations at sunrise, noon, and dusk. If successful, the holy guardian angel will reveal itself, and only then can the summoning and binding of demonic forces begin. The demons listed in the final portion of the manuscript are given names, hierarchies, and functions. They include entities such as Lucifer, Leviathan, and Astaroth, each said to control legions of lesser spirits. But rather than bargaining with them, the book insists on dominion using a series of magic word squares, palindromic symbols arranged in precise geometric configurations. The magician binds each spirit to his will. The spirits are then compelled to reveal hidden knowledge, uncover treasure, or perform protective tasks. Failure to complete the purification phase, however, is said to invite spiritual collapse. One note in the margin of a 17th-century copy simply reads, "He saw the face of something not meant to see us." Over the centuries, the Book of Abramelin has been blamed for several mental breakdowns among occult practitioners. Aleister Crowley famously attempted the operation in 1900 at the Scottish estate of Boleskine House, but was forced to abandon it midway. Shortly after, he reported being haunted by formless intelligences and lost control of the rituals. Later owners of Boleskine described similar disturbances: sudden temperature drops, shadow figures, and prolonged insomnia. The house eventually burned down under unexplained circumstances in 2015. What's most unsettling is that multiple versions of the book exist, and none are identical. The word squares differ in spelling and structure. The rituals vary slightly, and the list of spirits shifts. Some researchers suggest these discrepancies reflect the book's true nature, that it changes depending on the one who reads it, a metaphysical mirror drawing forth not truth, but intention. Today, the Book of Abramelin is still studied in esoteric circles, but few claim to have completed the full ritual. Even fewer speak of what came after. If the holy guardian angel is real, as the text insists, then its counterpart, the chorus of things we bind to control, must be real too. And perhaps, as some practitioners fear, they remember who tried to command them. Top 6. The Munich Manual of Demonic Magic. The Munich Manual of Demonic Magic. In 1990, a curator at the Bavarian State Library in Munich opened a sealed archival box marked simply Code Lat 449. Inside lay a 15th-century vellum manuscript bound in darkened leather, its pages dense with Latin incantations, hand-drawn sigils, and diagrams of ritual circles. The document had not been touched in over a century. It bore no title on the cover, but scholars quickly identified it by its chilling content. Liber Incantationum, Exorcismorum et Fascinationum Variarum, now known as the Munich Manual of Demonic Magic, believed to have been written around 1500. The manual is a compendium of demonic invocation rituals gathered by an anonymous cleric with advanced knowledge of both Catholic rites and esoteric heresies. Unlike the structured elegance of the Key of Solomon or the philosophical language of Picatrix, The Munich Manual is direct, almost clinical. It instructs the reader not only in how to summon demons, but how to command, trap, interrogate, and dismiss them with terrifying specificity. The manuscript categorizes 35 named spirits, many of whom also appear in other grimoires, but with altered traits or hierarchies. Each spirit is associated with precise attributes: times of summoning, necessary offerings, atmospheric signs of arrival, and even auditory hallucinations. One entry, for example, describes a demon named Andralus, who governs sound and logic. He is said to arrive on the 12th bell with wind that speaks in rhyme, and demands the blood of a silent beast, believed to be a cat with its tongue cut out. What distinguishes this text is its interrogation model. The rituals are not purely summoning acts. They are meant to extract information. The manual contains dozens of scripted questions ranging from "Where is buried the silver tongue of Saint Maurice?" to "Who watches the northern gates when the stars go black?" These are followed by response spaces left blank, as if the practitioner was expected to write in answers received during trance. The physical design of the book itself suggests protective intention. Marginal symbols repeat throughout, often resembling crossed circles or collapsed hexagons, sigils believed to suppress auditory contagion or prevent unintentional evocation. Several pages are visibly stained, not with ink, but with substances resembling oil, wax, and dried iron-rich fluid. Conservationists have refused DNA testing, citing preservation ethics. Though the Church banned the manuscript in the 16th century, it was not burned. Instead, it was locked away by a Jesuit college and eventually transferred to Munich in the 1800s under mysterious circumstances. Its reappearance in the modern archive prompted both scholarly interest and unease. During a 2002 academic conference, a Czech theologian claimed to have attempted one of the lesser invocations using phonetic Latin from the manual. He reported seeing a rip in the light followed by 3 days of aphasia and insomnia. He never published his findings and withdrew from public life. In recent years, the Munich Manual has become a subject of renewed attention. Digital scans of select pages were briefly available on a university server, but were taken down without explanation. Access to the full manuscript now requires special permission, and all physical handling must be conducted in the presence of 2 archivists and a security guard. Even among seasoned researchers, few request it twice. If the purpose of most grimoires is empowerment, the Munich Manual seems different. It is a book of questioning, of confrontation, a coded record of mankind's attempts to extract forbidden knowledge from unwilling sources. And based on its blank response fields, it seems that some of those questions were answered. Top 7. The Picatrix Codex. The Picatrix Codex. In 1921, a weathered Arabic manuscript surfaced in a private auction in Cairo. Its cover was unmarked, but inside were nearly 400 pages of densely packed text filled with astrological tables, ritual instructions, planetary diagrams, and a language that blurred the lines between mysticism and science. The manuscript was a medieval copy of Gayat al-Hakim, translated into Latin in the 12th century as Picatrix. Unlike other grimoires focused on spirits and demons, Picatrix is not about summoning. It is about transformation of self, of space, and of reality itself. Scholars believe Picatrix was compiled in the 10th or 11th century in Andalusia, drawing from a vast pool of earlier sources in Greek, Persian, and Indian magical traditions. It was written not by one author, but as a patchwork of dozens of lost works on the nature of consciousness, celestial influence, and ritual magic. Yet its message is startlingly unified, that thought properly aligned with cosmic forces can alter the material world. The core idea of Picatrix is that every planet emits a specific energy or essence that influences human life. By aligning rituals with planetary hours and crafting talismans infused with corresponding herbs, metals, and sounds, a practitioner can shape reality to their intent. These rituals are not symbolic. They are treated like engineering procedures. The book includes recipes for incense that open the gate of Mars, geometric layouts for memory enhancement chambers, and instructions for constructing mirrors that reflect the true name of a person's fate. More unnerving is the section on idol animation. One chapter explains how to create a statue infused with consciousness by preparing a body from wax, lead, and plant resins, then exposing it to planetary influences over 40 days. If successful, the idol will speak once in the presence of a question, after which it must be destroyed before the next lunar cycle. The book warns that failure to dispose of the idol results in the severing of dreams and the slow inversion of reason. What truly troubled later scholars was the tone of Picatrix. It does not speak in metaphor or spiritual abstraction. Instead, it treats the mind as a tool and the universe as a system that responds mechanically to properly tuned human will. This concept, that intent is frequency, mirrors surprisingly modern ideas in quantum theory and neuroplasticity, though Picatrix predates both by nearly 1,000 years. The Latin version of Picatrix was banned by the Church shortly after its translation due to its detailed instructions for subverting divine order. Pope Gregory IX reportedly declared it a machine disguised as scripture. Yet despite repeated suppression, the book persisted. It influenced court astrologers in Renaissance Italy, secret societies in 17th-century Prague, and occult scholars in Victorian England. Even Isaac Newton is believed to have studied portions of it, though this remains contested. In 2006, an anonymous whistleblower claimed that a military research facility had been analyzing a recovered version of Picatrix found among Iraqi cultural artifacts. According to the claim, certain formulas in the book were being explored for applications in cognitive warfare, experiments in altering belief and perception through targeted sensory exposure. The report was dismissed as fabrication, but the claim itself was enough to draw the attention of intelligence communities and digital archivists. What makes Picatrix so dangerous is not that it promises power, but that it presents power as a given, something already within us, waiting only for proper calibration. In a world where science and belief are often in opposition, this book proposes a terrifying reconciliation, that both are incomplete unless they meet in the human mind. And if Picatrix is right, then every thought is a tool, every intention a potential trigger. Top 8. The Key of Solomon. The Key of Solomon. In 1888, a heavily encrypted manuscript surfaced in the private library of a deceased British occultist. Bound in cracked calfskin and secured with iron clasps, the text bore the Latin title Clavicula Salomonis Regis, the Key of King Solomon. Though multiple versions of the book had circulated across Europe for centuries, this copy was different. Its diagrams were drawn with surgical precision, its pages inscribed with both Hebrew and Latin, and its ink bore chemical traces of gold, copper, and powdered bone. It wasn't just a spiritual text, it was a device. According to lore, the Key of Solomon was written by the biblical king himself, transcribed while imprisoned by demonic forces he had once enslaved. In most versions, the book is said to provide detailed instructions for summoning, controlling, and banishing spirits, not to worship them, but to dominate them. It is structured like an operator's manual for the metaphysical realm. The text is divided into 2 books. The first outlines purification rituals for the magician, abstinence from meat, isolation from society, and a full lunar cycle of prayer. Only after this process can the practitioner begin drawing the ritual circles. These are no ordinary circles. Each one contains specific angel names, planetary symbols, and lines of ancient script that must be inscribed with a blade of virgin silver. The surface must be virgin parchment, specifically the skin of a goat born under Jupiter's hour and sacrificed without shedding blood. These materials are not symbolic. The instructions stress they are mandatory, or the rituals will break in reverse. The second book lists dozens of spirits, both infernal and celestial, each paired with seals, incantations, and binding methods. Solomon is said to have captured 72 demons in a brass vessel, compelling them to serve him by invoking the name of names, an ineffable utterance only the purest could speak. Each demon has a function: uncovering secrets, locating treasure, manipulating dreams, or distorting memory. What is unsettling is the degree of precision. The time of day, planetary hour, wind direction, and even humidity level are listed as critical factors in successful summoning. Misalign any of them, and the spirit may appear corrupted, unrecognizable, or worse, stay behind when dismissed. The key also provides an array of protective tools: pentacles drawn from divine geometry, rings engraved with Hebrew words of power, and incenses tailored to blind or weaken spiritual entities. In one passage, the practitioner is warned never to look directly at the spirit until the circle is sealed. Another section describes a mirror of acknowledgement used to verify whether the entity obeys or deceives. That mirror, the text notes, must be buried after 3 uses, for the reflection may remain. Despite its age, the Key of Solomon has had a persistent afterlife. Renaissance scholars, including Cornelius Agrippa and Eliphas Levi, referenced its structure in their magical systems. Aleister Crowley viewed it as foundational. Even modern ceremonial magic orders continue to adapt its rituals, albeit cautiously. Some claim the original Hebrew version, now lost, was even more detailed, containing diagrams said to match star charts only visible once every 144 years. Several museums claim to have copies of the key, but access is limited. The British Library houses one version, Codex Harley 3981, but specific pages have been redacted in public scans. In 2003, a Vatican archivist anonymously leaked that the Holy See possessed a 13th century edition bound in human skin, stored in a sealed vault beneath the Archivum Secretum Apostolicum Vaticanum. The Church has never confirmed this. What distinguishes the Key of Solomon from other grimoires is not the power it offers, but the control it demands. There is no promise of salvation, no pact, just procedures, warnings, rules, and the chilling suggestion that even the forces we call evil can be bound not by goodness, but by geometry. Top 9. The Book of Honorius. The Book of Honorius. In 1629, a Jesuit scholar stationed on the outskirts of Venice acquired a manuscript from a traveling monk who refused to give his name. The monk warned that the book was a vestige from a vanished order and should never be opened under a roof. The scholar ignored him. That night, neighbors reported strange howling from the chapel library. By morning, the scholar was found dead, his body intact, but his eyes blackened and lips sealed shut. The book on his desk was identified as Liber Juratus Honori, or the Book of Honorius the Magician, a grimoire attributed to Honorius of Thebes, a legendary figure whose existence remains unproven, but whose name appears across multiple banned texts from the medieval period. Unlike other grimoires that oscillate between Christian and pagan symbolism, the Book of Honorius positions itself as a deliberate transgression. It does not plead for divine permission, it commands. The rituals within are designed not for summoning demons, but for directly contacting entities that exist outside the binary of heaven and hell. beings described as neither fallen nor appointed, who dwell in what the book calls the region between the circles. One of the most disturbing elements is the book's treatment of spiritual geography. Rather than a simple heaven-hell-earth model, Honorius describes concentric metaphysical rings, each governed by different laws of time, matter, and will. Entities from outer rings require more complex invocations, some involving sound-based matrices, others geometric distortions. One ritual instructs the practitioner to build a chamber with angled wooden walls and a ceiling painted with reversed constellations. In that space, a gate is to be opened using a chant written backward and spoken in complete darkness over the heart of a blooded dove. The book's language is aggressive. Practitioners are warned to bind the voice of resistance, reject the counsel of angels, and invite only those who do not fear flesh. The text positions these beings not as demonic or divine, but as alternatives, entities that were bypassed in the formation of modern religion. Their motives are not explained. They are described as rememberers of the lost script, harbingers of function, and those who speak when no one listens. Historically, the Book of Honorius has been treated with extreme caution. It was banned by the Catholic Church almost immediately after its appearance in the 13th century. Pope Gregory IX referred to it as a work that denies the necessity of heaven. Several inquisitors who attempted to translate it into vernacular languages died within a year of beginning their efforts. One version, held at a monastery in Catalonia, was reportedly buried under the altar and sealed with lead. When the tomb was reopened during renovations in the 1800s, workers reported sulfuric smells and flickering shadows that persisted for days. Modern versions of the book are rare, often incomplete, and usually translated from fragmented Latin or Greek. Still, certain occult circles claim that the full text is preserved in coded form, passed through generations in oral recitation. There are whispers of a complete edition surfacing in Romania in the 1970s, but the collector who allegedly possessed it disappeared en route to Vienna, and no proof of the book's survival has surfaced since. What separates the Book of Honorius from other grimoires is not just its content, but its intent. It is not a guide for power, protection, or transformation. It is a revolt, a declaration that spiritual reality is larger than the systems that define it, and that there are voices older than God still willing to speak if someone dares to listen. And maybe, just maybe, they've been waiting. Top 10. The Sworn Book of Honorius. The Sworn Book of Honorius. In 1347, as the Black Death ravaged Europe, a manuscript was smuggled from a monastery in southern France under the cover of night. Bound in dark red vellum and secured with a clasp shaped like a serpent biting its tail, it bore the inscription Liber Sacratus, the Sworn Book. It was later identified as the Sworn Book of Honorius, not to be confused with the earlier Book of Honorius. This was no mere spell book. It was, as many occult scholars now agree, a codified system of divine coercion, a legal document designed to force open the heavens. Unlike other grimoires, the Sworn Book does not approach the spiritual realm through fear or flattery. Instead, it presents rituals as legal appeals. Each ceremony is framed as a petition sworn in the name of divine justice, demanding access to the knowledge of angels and, more disturbingly, dominion over the spirits of the dead and the damned. The practitioner is positioned not as a supplicant, but as an advocate invoking universal law to override divine silence. The manuscript is organized with rigorous structure. Every invocation begins with an oath binding the practitioner to the consequences of misusing the knowledge, and ends with a clause known as Clausula Exodus, a statement that severs the spiritual connection if the ritual becomes corrupted. The instructions are exacting. 7 days of fasting, prayers at dawn facing specific stars, and the drawing of 9 concentric circles embedded with names that are combinations of Hebrew, Greek, and unknown alphabets. Among the most infamous components is the Oreo Illuminandi, a ritual said to induce visions of celestial architecture and reveal the names of opening. Vibrational phrases meant to temporarily unlock perception of higher dimensions. Those who have attempted it report symptoms ranging from intense nausea and auditory hallucinations to spontaneous bleeding from the nose and gums. In a 1923 private translation, British occultist Arthur Waite warned that the ritual undoes the veil between breath and meaning, and recommended that no one perform it alone. Even more controversial is the book's section on questioning the spirits. Unlike passive scrying methods, this ritual involves a containment circle inscribed with geometries that resemble electrical circuit diagrams. Long before the discovery of electricity, the practitioner is instructed to summon a spirit, bind it within the sigil, and interrogate it under the light of the 9th lamp, a candle infused with resins found only in the Levant. Questions must be prepared in advance and spoken in reverse sequence. Answers, the book warns, may come in symbols, dreams, or immediate synchronicities, but never directly. The Church considered the sworn Book of Honorius so dangerous that it became one of the first works explicitly targeted by the Index Librorum Prohibitorum. Copies were seized and burned, but the book refused to vanish. Handwritten versions continued to circulate in underground scholarly circles, especially among Rosicrucians and alchemists. A partial edition exists today in the British Library, Sloane MS 3853, though key chapters have been redacted or replaced with blank pages. In the 1960s, a controversial American theologian claimed that parts of the sworn book were used in CIA remote viewing experiments under Project Stargate. Though denied by official sources, leaked documents refer to a medieval template for non-ocular cognition that matches the structure of the book's psychic expansion techniques. Unlike most grimoires that end in caution or glorification, the sworn Book of Honorius ends in silence. Its final chapter is titled De Absentia Verbi, or On the Absence of the Word. The page is blank, save for a symbol, a circle within a square within a triangle, all enclosed in a ring of text that reads, "He who speaks last hears nothing." If true contact was ever made using this book, no record of it remains. Or perhaps it was never written down at all. These 10 books, each banned, buried, or suppressed, reveal more than isolated cases of occult curiosity. They form a disturbing pattern, a network of manuscripts that did not merely explore the unknown, but dared to codify it, instruct it, and, in some cases, command it. They are not legends whispered among the gullible. They are real objects held in vaults, libraries, and private collections. Each one is marked by a trail of disappearances, mysterious deaths, and warnings that arrive too late. And together, they expose a blueprint not of chaos, but of control. Across centuries and continents, institutions of power, churches, monarchies, intelligence agencies have moved swiftly to contain these books. Some were burned, others hidden. In several cases, the mere possession of a page was enough to warrant execution or excommunication. Yet, no matter how many were destroyed, copies resurfaced. They passed through the hands of secret orders, cabals, and solitary mystics. The method of suppression varied, but the intent was always the same: silence. These texts challenge foundational truths, not by offering lies, but by offering alternatives, other ways of seeing, perceiving, and even reshaping reality. The potential loss is incalculable. If even one of these books contains knowledge that could expand consciousness, heal the body, or reveal the architecture of existence, then suppressing them has cost humanity a future it may never recover. The Grand Grimoire's precision, the Picatrix's alignment of thought and cosmos, the sworn book's manipulation of perception, each presents the outline of a road not taken. And with each destroyed copy, a door has closed behind us. But perhaps most unsettling is the possibility that these books are not dead relics. The behaviors described in them, sealed archives, blacked-out scans, missing researchers, suggest the opposite, that some of them are still being studied, still being tested, that the suppression is not historical, but ongoing. Modern institutions may no longer burn heretics in public squares, but the mechanism of disappearance remains quiet, surgical, and final. We are told these books are dangerous, that reading them risks corruption. But history shows that danger often masks value. That which is most heavily guarded is not always poisonous, it is often powerful. So the question shifts, not whether these texts are real, they are. Not whether they work, some may. The real question is this: why are we not allowed to read them? Because, in the end, the fear is not that we will believe what they say, it's that we might understand. If these forbidden chronicles have shifted your perspective on the hidden forces that shape our world, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the history they tried to bury. Plant the seeds of the future. The next vault of secrets will open soon.